What we're going to go through here are the different boxes on the Lean Canvas, and then I'll guide you through actually creating one, a prototype one for your business, or kind of the early first sketch. There's a stepwise way that you go through these boxes and fill them out. And the reason is that there tends to be a cascade. When you have answers in one box, it cascades down into the other boxes. So there's certain boxes we think of first because evidence you build there has the highest impact and likelihood to change all the other boxes. So that's why there is an order to how we're going to go through these. And the first one that you want to think about first is the problem. What problem are you trying to solve? Now, this may be a problem that exists today, where it's very easy to articulate, this is the problem people are having, here's our solution to the problem. So easily understood by the market. Another powerful thing as you think about the problem is not the problem that your proposed solution is addressing, the lived problem that your market is experiencing. Now, there's a challenge here, which is the problem may not be obvious initially to the market. You may be able to see into the future and realize this problem is going to emerge. People can't see it yet, but I'm a visionary entrepreneur, and I can see the world's going to change, and I'm going to solve a problem that doesn't exist today. That's awesome. It's also dangerous. So you have to be very thoughtful about how you approach future changes and future problems that are going to emerge. Another way to think about it too is aspirations. It may not be a problem that somebody has, but they aspire to make the situation they're in better. A lot of consumer products solve aspirations rather than solve underlying problems. The next box we go to is the customer segment. Who is going to have that problem? So this is where we think about in the market, these are people that are often in the same situation. They often have a similar problem that's emerging, and very often they have a common language. They share a common language around how they would describe their problem, their situation, and the experiences they're having. Common language is important because this is a tool not just to help you articulate your business, but this is also a tool to help you take your product to market. And when you take your product to market, if you use your language, you have to teach people your language. If you use their language, you skip that step. And it's much, much easier for the market to resonate with what you're saying because you're not using your solution-based language, you're using their problem-based description or their aspirational descriptions. So that's how to think about customer segments. Also in here, we think about early adopters. Who are the people who are most likely to adopt this solution first? Because when you think about how technology gets adopted, it doesn't just get wholesale adopted first. There's always a handful of like crazy people who will try anything, and they're your early first adopters. And what they're there because they want to go on the journey with you. They think it's cool to be like the first person to have this gadget or the first person to get the benefits from this new product. And they're there just as much to be on an adventure with you as they are to use your product. So keep that in mind with early adopters. They behave differently than the rest of the market. And we're especially not talking, so on the opposite end of that are laggards. Laggards are the people whose VCR is still blinking 12, even though you can't buy a VCR anywhere, can't buy VCR tapes, but they still have that VCR because they only buy technology when it's impossible to buy the old technology anymore. And then they move to the next piece of technology that's nearly dead. So those are the last people you want to build your product for because they will never buy it initially. Your company will die before they get around to buying the technology. So don't cater to laggards, cater to crazy people who adopt anything kind of like you. You're willing to lean in and start something where nobody else is willing to start it. You want to first put your product in front of people who will not necessarily try anything, but they love the adventure of trying new things. Next, we think about the unique value proposition. I differ from Ash a little bit in how I explain this, in that I like to think about unique value proposition as not what's unique in your offer, but how would your customer describe the unique characteristics of that problem going away for them? So if that problem doesn't exist in their world, what value does that represent to them? If that aspiration is achieved, what value do they get off of achieving that aspiration? So where possible, use their language. And then the high-level concept at the bottom there is a way to give kind of a headline version of what you're doing. So if somebody comes up to you and says, hey, what are you up to? It's kind of like an abbreviated elevator pitch. Well, we're doing this for these people. It's a way kind of to create an analogy that allows people to easily understand sort of at a vague high level what you're up to, but not yet really at the deep specifics. All right, so those are the three kind of primary first boxes that emerge in this model called the lean canvas. What tends to happen here is these all kind of co-evolve with each other. So while I went through problem, then customer segment, then unique value, often what happens is you get a little foothold in one, you learn about the other, and anytime you learn anything about these three boxes, please go back and reconsider all three boxes. So when you learn something about a problem that your potential customers are having or some new language around how they describe that problem going away, go back and thoughtfully reconsider these three boxes. In my experience, these three always morph together based on your knowledge. Now notice also what I didn't cover in here. I didn't cover the solution. So the key concept here as you begin using this canvas is get these three boxes figured out before you really dive in and jump to the solution. And when you do start building your solution, it's in service of building evidence and understanding about these three boxes. Who has what problem, and how do they describe the value of that problem going away? Or who has what aspiration, and how do they describe what their life, how their life changes when that aspiration is met? And if you're picking on a future problem that doesn't exist in the market today, you still need to understand how that person would describe that future problem. Because very often when you're in front of a market, the only thing you can rely on is your language. The key here is to learn what's their language for that problem emerging and then you making that problem go away.